You like champagne as much as I do?
I truly, I'm a champagne lover, Josh.
I think one of the common misconceptions that people have about champagne is that it's just for special occasions such as wedding or New Year's, but really champagne can be enjoyed anytime. You can have it as aperitifs, with meals, with brunches, or just enjoyed anytime.
I agree with you totally. I think there's a lot of misconceptions that go along with champagne, and it's really sad, but it's just the truth. And one of them is that we talk about champagne all the time, but as we know, true champagne comes from
the Champagne region of France.
Exactly. So we're really dealing with a bunch of sparkling wine, and whether it's from Italy and called an Asti or a Cava from Spain, we're really dealing with sparkling wines, and there's a whole variety. I know a lot of people will come in and immediately say, I've had a champagne and I just don't enjoy champagne. But I think this little tasting that we're going to have, we're going to try to explain a little history, and we're going to do a little tasting and tell everybody what we think about each one of the bottles as we go along. One of the hardest things as we get started is going to be opening a bottle of champagne, and a lot of people are scared because it is under pressure. If you're not careful, the cork will pop and hit the ceilings and hopefully not one another. But the way I do it is I take a simple little towel, I put it over that cork, I turn it at a 45-degree angle, twist the bottle and pull back, and if it's done right, it will be just like so. What we're going to be starting with is we're going to try a Martini and Rossi. They're Asti.
Oh.
And if we do a little history on champagne, the French started out with champagne, and they came up with what they presented to us was a doux. It was a very, very sweet champagne. The English were big drinkers of the champagne, and they said to the French, this is just a little too sweet for us. We need something a little drier. So the French came back and sent them a demi-sec, a semi-dry. Well, the English tried it and said, it's not dry enough. So the French went back, produced a sec, a dry champagne for them. The English tried it. Lo and behold, as you can imagine, the English told the French, we need something drier. So the French said, we're going to make it very easy upon you all. We're going to label this bottle extra dry to tell you English that this is a very, very, very dry champagne for you all. So the English, of course, try it. They report back, we want it drier. And of course, at that time, the French produced a brut, and that translates into a rough. The French consider that a rough champagne, but the English did enjoy that. So as we go along here, we're going to be trying, like I said, this is from Italy, but this is it's a sparkling wine, and it's on the sweeter side. Let's give it a try and see what we think about it. A little Asti sparkler.
Very clean.
Oh, it's very, very clean, refreshing, nice sweetness to it. That's a crowd pleaser in my book.
The amazing thing about champagne is that it's been able to last for hundreds of years.
Having the extra dry right there. Okay.
It's been through 2 world wars. Many champagne houses were destroyed during, especially World War I. But yet, some of the best vintages came from that period in time.
This extra dry on the shelf, it will be basically kind of snugged up against that brut, and people will just go to that. And when they're looking at brut, when they're looking at that extra dry, there are not many. There are a few demi-secs around, but typically you kind of go from an Asti to an extra dry to a brut or a brut rosé. But this extra dry, they'll grab and they'll think brut, extra dry, and if no one's there really to help them out, which way I would go the same way. I'm reading extra dry, I lean towards that brut, I grab the brut, and off I go. And I can tell you, being that if I'm not really a champagne drinker, I will tell you I probably would not like that bottle. So even though if they pick the one to the left, possibly the extra dry, it really does have a little sweetness in it. So therefore, not as sweet as this old Asti, but At the same time, it does offer that sweetness. Tell us what do you all think about this one?
A little richer.
Crisper. Not as much. Definitely, we've lost a sweetness, but it still has a little residual sugar in it.
A little bit creamier.
I think that would be nice with food, even if you
Oh,
wanted to
great.
have seafood.
Yes, absolutely. The last one we're going to try is going to be that Brut on the end down there.
A little creamier.
Oh, yes. And it's got a nice almond nuttiness. As you said, I think you've talked about being a little toastiness to it. And a lot of these you're dealing with cost too. Typically people will go in and when they say they want a champagne, if we take them to the French true champagne section, they're looking at it can be 40 on up to hundreds of dollars. The great thing though is there is a little spin to that a lot of those French champagne houses have wineries and their own domestic sparklers from California. So therefore, you can still get the same taste. Some of them are even, the winemakers are flowing back and forth between France and California to do the production of those sparklers. So you can enjoy some French without having paid quite the price. But that's what I think this whole conversation has been about. Don't allow the champagnes to intimidate you. There is a champagne for you. And I think if you like that sweeter style, this Asti can be one, an exceptional one for you. But at the same time, if you like a dry or in between, there are a multitude to look at here in the champagnes.
And speaking of the Martini and Rossi, I ran across a drink that I really enjoyed the other day called a Bellini. And it's an Italian drink, and I had it at a restaurant, and I really enjoyed it. It's very refreshing. And you can go to your grocery store and purchase this peach nectar. And you can go to the Mexican section there and get your peach nectar, and then fill your glass about 1/3 full with the peach nectar, and then you just top it off with champagne. This would be really great any time of the year.
Well, I hope everybody's had a good champagne tasting today, and maybe that will help educate a few people in the future.
Sounds great.
Thank you all for your help.
Cheers.
Cheers.